¿Qué ondas, primos?
Primas.
Y primes.
Welcome to
My Primos.
My Primos.
My
Primo
podcast. Welcome to the My Primos podcast.
My name is Freddie.
My name is Kevin Garcia.
My name is EliaMaria Madrid.
My name is John Avina.
This is Chikume, whenever I can make it.
My Primos podcast discusses all things fandom and pop culture,
From comic books,
Movies?
To whatever obsession we have this week.
but with a Latine
Latina
my Latino.
perspective. Remember, we're all primos,
We're all primes.
Primas.
Primos.
no matter what part of the world we're from.
¿Qué onda, primos, primas, primes? And welcome back to My Primos podcast. How are y'all doing today on this Tuesday? Well, it's Tuesday for me. I don't know what day it is for y'all. But
You know
whatever
what?
day you're listening,
If you're listening to this on a Monday, you pause it right there, pick it up the next day, and you're like, "How did she know?"
listen, I knew that Tuesday was the manifestation of energy to watch, listen to said podcast. And if you're not listening on a Tuesday, don't listen to me. Don't let me dictate your life. But welcome back. My name.
There
is
could be worse
EliaMaria.
people to do that.
Listen, no. But you don't want my advice in life either. I'm a little crazy. But we're here. Welcome back, Primos, and we got a fun episode for y'all tonight. But like every week, I'm here. My name is EliaMaria, same as always. And with me is the one, the only, KevinGarcia.com. Say what's up, Kevin.
What's up, Kevin?
How are you, Kevin?
I am doing. I got a stomach flu over the weekend, I think, and so did my partner. And she's like, must have been your students that got us sick. And I'm like, how do you know it's not your coworkers? Now, mind you, she works from home, but I still think it could have been her coworkers.
You still can't rule it out. Can't rule it out.
Certainly. But I'm recovering now. I'm doing better.
Good. Yeah, there's a lot of like bugs and sickness going around, y'all. Just keep yourselves good. Wipe it down. Wash your hands. If you got to sneeze, don't do it towards your friends. Okay, like.
Oh my God. I got to see Welcome to Night Vale stage show last week.
Oh, what?
And it was so good. But right before it started, the guy next to us kept coughing, and it was him and his friend. So he turned towards us to cough,
No.
and I was like, I literally had to stop. I'm like, could you not aim this direction?
not?
And he's like, oh no, it's because I got a thing in my throat. I'm like, cool. Don't aim this direction.
That's what they always say. Oh man, but y'all, let's get into it tonight. We have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to discuss the comics and more from this creator. Tonight we have Marco Finnegan. Marco, welcome. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yo, and so Marco,
It's
we
exciting.
put everyone on the spot.
Trying to match your energy. I don't have that. I don't.
No, it's all good. I had caffeine before this, but it's okay. But we're so excited to have you. You have an amazing book that we got to see. You've got amazing works behind your belt. But for the primos that don't know who you are, let us know about yourself, what you do, what you like to do, and about your works.
Well, I'm Marco Finnegan, and I'm a Chicano cartoonist from Southern California. I've written and drawn a couple of books, Calavera PI being the latest from Oni. And I've drawn stuff for Abrams. I've drawn James Bond for Dynamite. Drawing something else for Dynamite right now.
Ooh, secret.
No, it's out. It's called Dynamite with an exclamation point in the middle with Fred Van Lente.
Well, he's
And
always
it's,
good.
he's great. And it's all the Dynamite girls versus zombies. And it's just
as you do.
It's basically like what 14-year-old me would have been really excited to draw, because it's just like zombies in Vegas and zombies in a tunnel, and Fred's just the perfect guy for it, because he just really he can make the ridiculous stuff, but he can also put in a lot of heart and some good story. And so I'm doing that right now, and then so that's it. I mean, I'm just and then I teach art during the day. So
So you teach, I teach high school. I have pretty much all grades of high school, kind of do graphic design and publications.
same, yeah.
What do you teach?
I teach art all levels. I use a different name because my real last name, which is Magallanes,
Secret cuts out.
and it used to be when I started drawing comics professionally. I think it was about 10 or 11 years ago. I was also trying to be a principal, and so we were like, well, let's get this comic thing out of the I didn't think it was going to go very far. It was kind of like fell in my lap, and I was doing a book called Crossroad Blues for Image Comics, and it
I
was
just
really
fell in your
violent.
lap. I love that.
No, it kind of did. I mean, it was another story, but it just kind of did, and I was like, okay, so, and I'd been doing storyboarding up until then, but I really thought I wanted to be a principal, and when you're a principal, they really vet you, and I was like,
Mm.
well, this book's kind of violent, and I don't want this to kind of stop the principal thing. So my wife's last name is Finnegan, and we used to always joke that if I was Irish, I'd be Mark O'Finnegan, so we're like, well, let's just
Works.
do that. Like, we'll do that as a joke for this one book. And then I didn't get the principal job, but then I got more
Aw.
comic book work. And so I couldn't,
Hey, that's yeah.
I was stuck. I didn't want to like go back and be like, no, and explain that to editors.
Yeah.
So, and it's a good luck name. It's a luckily Irish name.
Look at the Irish.
Hell
Makes,
yeah.
makes me think of Stan Lee. Famously, his name was Stanley Martin Lieber, but he was worried that if he made comic books, he'd never make it big in novels.
Yeah,
So
right.
he put the fake name of Stan Lee in the books, and that's how he got to be known. So he just
Right.
changed it eventually.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
I just love that idea.
Yeah, it's just kind of in there. So it's a good luck name, and it's worked for 10 or 11 years. So I'm not gonna get rid of it.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm super excited to sit down and talk about this book. So I've looked at it, Kevin's looked at it. Like off the bat, like first of all, writer and the artist, like
And
holy
such
cow.
art.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And I colored it, and this was the first one I've colored. So
Really?
And you colored it.
yeah,
Wow.
this was a friend of mine said this is the most Marco thing you've ever done, and I think it is. I think it's the one where it's one of those things where you're surprised that someone's going to let you do it. So you're like, I want to do everything I thought I could do, because before they figure out that I shouldn't be doing it, and so that's kind of how that was, and so it was awesome. I mean, I hope to do more, but it was amazing that I got to do one. I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
it's everything I have been wanting to do in comics to this point was in that book.
Calavera PI. Why is this the most Marco book that you could have made? I'm very, because I look at this, I'm seeing crime noir, I'm seeing a lot of Latino culture going on. I have a big love for crime noir and like luchador movies, and there's got a vibe of that where like there's this constant air of like a little bit more than real and yet down to earth at the same time. What makes this the most Marco?
I think it's the most synthesized of all my influences. So, like I said, I'm a big film noir guy. I'm a big Dashiell Hammett guy, Chandler as well. And especially during quarantine, I kind of did like a deep dive. Like I watched everything on AMC or TMC, whatever the movie channel. I went
One
to
of
the
those.
library, checked out everything, and I was just doing deep dives. And I read everything Hammett wrote, and it was just so much of LA in there, and there's a lot of LA culture and Southern California culture. And I love, even when I was little, I used to love seeing places that I grew up, because I grew up in Southern California around LA area, and I used to love seeing places, mentioned in books. Like Robert Crace is a great crime writer, and he mentions, Temecula, where I live now, and then he's mentioned Bellflower, where I grew up, and there's like, it's just these little things where you're like, oh, like it makes it real to you, right? So the one thing that was missing in all these things was that whenever a Chicano or a Mexican was mentioned, it was always kind of like relegated to like either a joke character or a villain or a nothing. And all these places that I knew were synonymous with Mexican American culture were mentioned, but never other than anecdotal, right? It was never more than just kind of like a little touchstone. And I said, well, knowing what I know about LA, that it, especially in the 1930s, it was like it was the second most populated area of Spanish speakers outside of Mexico, right?
I think
like
it still is, actually.
I think it might be. And so it was like, well, so it was a conscious choice, right, for people to ignore it. Like it was like if you were Hammett or you were Chandler or you were making a movie in LA, like you purposely were going, don't film them, like we're not going to talk about it. And so Walter,
especially at that time period, if they did have Mexicans in it, it was usually somebody in brownface. So
right, like that Orson Welles movie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and there were like caricatures, right? Like it was just
Yeah.
caricatures of who we are. And so Walter Mosley had this really great quote, and it said, if a people are erased from popular culture, they're erased from reality. So most of us, right, we don't read history books as much as we watch movies, as much as we intake pop culture. So I was like, well, okay, so let's pretend that it was 1930s, 1940s, and I'm a kid, and what would I want? Like what type of, and that's, and so that's kind of where it came up with. And I had a Chicano detective, and he was all laid out, and I just didn't have the hook. Like I really just didn't have it. And I was actually in LA for a teacher training, and I was out there for a weekend. And I drove around. I went to Olvera Street, and I went to where Bunker Hill used to be, and I was just like, oh, and I kind of had, I was alone in a hotel room, which I, don't do well, and so I just started doodling this character, and then I saw this drawing, and now I'm blanking on the guy's name, and it was like a political cartoon from 1930s, and the name's gonna come back to me. I'm at that age where names are gone. Garcia was the last name, and so
I was gonna say I'm at that age now where names are gone, so.
and they're just gone. And so I sent it to, and it was a Calavera. The guy used to draw like political cartoons of Calaveras, and it was a Calavera with a beer bottle at a bar with a hat on. And I was like, oh, and I sent it to my friend Lalo Alcaraz, who's the great cartoonist, and I was like, Calavera PI, and I was like, that's my new book. And he goes, you have to do it. And I said, I have to do it, right? And it all clicked because I had all this stuff that I had been synthesizing, and then I just needed the hook, and I got the hook, and then with the hook came the time frame, right? The ticking time bomb, which I'm also a sucker for, because I don't ever know how to get out of a story. So having like a time bomb of like, okay, you have 2 days to do this, and then that was the hook. And so with the hook came the supernatural stuff, and then it all fell together. And then I was just kind of posting stuff, sharing stuff, going, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you guys think? And then my editor from Oni, Gabriel, reached out and was like, what is this that you're doing? And I was like, bro, let me tell you. And so I sent it to him. He's like, we have to do this. And he became like the champion for it over at Oni. And so between him and my agent and the people at Oni, they were just, a lot of people just really like the hook, and it's got a good hook. I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but it is a good hook. And I think, there are things that I wish I could do better, and hopefully will do more of, but I really like the character as who he is, and the idea of this detective existing in this parallel shadow world that we never see in movie and books, protecting people that we never see in these movies and books. So it's, and that would make sense. If you have a group of people, you're going to need someone to protect them. So,
you say you're like congratulating yourself, but the thing is, we have to. I always tell creators, you have to promote your own stuff. It's hard as a creator, because you're always like, oh, I want to promote other people's stuff and everything, but we need to get it out there. And one thing, like you were saying earlier, the whole idea that if we're not in pop culture, then we don't exist. This is something that I've been saying over and over again. The more we have Latino, Latina creators, the more we're going to have those characters out there. And the more those characters get out there, the more the wider, mostly Anglo, pop culture gets to see it. And the more we do exist, like I always give the example of like Thor. Everybody now knows about Thor's hammer. And that's just because Jack Kirby and others just kept pushing this idea. And we can do that with our own culture,
Right. And I think it's like things like with Spider-Man, where, with great power comes great responsibility, has become a part of something that people say on a regular basis that, 20 years ago was a very specific group of people. And I think that's, if we can do that, and people of color and women and, anybody can start telling their own stories. And, there's all that saying that the more specific your story is to you, the more general the audience you'll get. Like if you try to make something for everybody, you alienate everybody, right? But if you try to you break it down to, here's this story about X, Y, and Z. It's like Coco is a really good example, right? Like Coco is a huge phenomenon, but for Latinos, it's like even bigger and even more important. But now you see everybody has an ofrenda and everybody understands it, and it's one of those things where I don't think they set out to say, we're going to teach everybody about, Dios de los Muertos. I don't think that's what
Yeah.
I know for a fact that's not what they set out to do, but I think it talks about grief, and it talks about loss, and it talks about family, and those are really universal things in a specific lens. And I think Black Panther did the same thing, talks about family, talks about legacy, talks about, fathers and sons, but in a very specific world, but a very universal theme. And so that's kind of what I was hoping to do within this crime genre, that I love. I will read a Hammett novel, once a month, or it's such a staple of what I enjoy, that just, it's not even like a criticism of it. Like, I don't want it to be like, well, we weren't included,
Yeah.
of course we weren't, but this is, if we were, this would be the guy that would be there with them, not taking away from, but adding to. So that's the long-winded version of how that came. Yeah.
So, for anyone who has never heard of this before, and you want them so much to just dive in, what is the pitch for bringing them into the story?
All right. So this dude, here's my guy. And
dude.
Yeah. So Calavera PI was in 1930s, or actually 1925, he was killed. He was Joe Calavera, and he was this private eye that worked the areas that we don't see in movies and films, and he was killed. And in 1930, his girl Friday Maria is desperate because her son is kidnapped, and she goes to the only person that she thinks she can beg for help, and she goes to his unmarked grave, and he rises on Dia de los Muertos, and he has 2 days to find her missing son. And so the idea being that anybody who comes and makes an offering to him of tequila, cigarettes, and pan dulce,
all the important stuff.
All the necessities in life, right? You get to hire him for 2 days to work your case. And for him, he is, he's Hammett's character. He's the continental op, like he's just dogged. And it's a very blue collar. My oldest son, Justin, says, like, he's a very blue collar hero. Like, this is what he does because this is what he does. Like, he doesn't know how to do anything else. And my son says that's how I am with comics. Like, he's like,
as a compliment.
Yeah, no, and he means it as a compliment. And I think, and he says, you don't romanticize it. You just sit down and you do the work because that's the work that you know how to do, and that's kind of what Calavera is like, this is all he knows how to do. So he doesn't want peace. He doesn't even really want anything other than to do the work. So when you have someone like him and you take him away in his prime, he's just chomping at the bit, right? To get out there. And so great detective novels that I like I mentioned, Robert Crace, but also Robert B. Parker. And they all start with someone walking into the detective's office. She walked in, or he walked in, and and the case starts. And that's my equivalent to that, is someone's going to show up at his grave and offer him something, and he's going to go and work the case for the 2 days, as best he can.
If there's a mystery to solve, he needs to solve it. It's like, I was going to say in his blood, but I guess lack of blood, in his bones. It's in his bones.
The funny thing you say that is that there was a scene where me and Gabriel were working on this, really tightly, and so
your editor.
It was like, and it was like, 2 a.m. on like a Thursday after evening, and I'm trying to draw the pages, and he texts me, he's like, "Hey, are you still up?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I got a real important question." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Does Calavera bleed?" And so, then I guess, because I had drawn, he got hit and stuff was flying out. Like, maybe it's ectoplasm that's, I don't know. Like, it's 2 a.m, and then it's one of those moments where you're kind of like, this is a pretty cool job. Like, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
New lore just dropped right there.
Yeah,
2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you can't believe that someone's giving you money to do this, and that,
right? Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but it's still hard work, but it's still, you can get in the weeds, and so that's one of those things where, yeah, sure, he bleeds.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask, you said you love doing this, and you talked about, how you just kind of happened to get some jobs before. How did you get started in comics? How did that ball get rolling, I guess?
I think I when I was a kid, I lived in this area, Bellflower in Southern California, and it was early 80s, and so I would go get a haircut. My mom would give me, $5 to go get a haircut at Vic and Arnold's barbershop, and so a haircut was $4, and the other dollar was supposed to be for tips. Well, one day I showed up on a Saturday, and they were busy, so they made me wait, and so I was, walking around, and next door to Vic and Arnold's was a comic book store. And outside of the comic book store was a cart of 4 comics for $1. And I was like, well, you're not getting a tip.
I love those.
Yeah.
You're not getting a tip.
So they didn't get tipped. I got Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, was one of the first ones because it had Peter Porker in the
Spider-Ham. Oh, I know that book, yeah.
And I was like, well, why is there a pig in it? And so I got that one, and it's very much the type of comics I still love, because those Peter Parker ones, they were more about Peter Parker and less about Spidey, right? Like it was, I think one of them was, they came to the West Coast and he didn't have he was trying to like swing on trees, things like that, where I was like, well, yeah, what would Spider-Man do if he came out here? And, and so I got hooked right away. And then I think I went to Teen Titans. And then I graduated into just buying the new ones. And then I realized, you kind of learn how things work. Because at first you're like, what are these things? Like, you knew about Archie and newspaper strips, but you're like, what is this? Like, this is number 160 something. And how do I find the other ones? And then you figure out, every week something's coming out. So, it became like addiction, hit soon. And then I think it was also like Super Friends. I would always draw Super Friends and Scooby. And then around, I think I got the Daredevil trade of Born Again. And I remember just going to that shop and looking at it and not being able to afford it. I think it was like $20. And I was like, God, this thing, what is this? I knew who Daredevil was, but I didn't know enough. And I was like, yeah, she's using heroin and he's naked and like things are blowing up. What's happening in this comic?
And your young mind was just over the top.
I was like 7th grade, and I was like, what? Something's going on. Like, I probably shouldn't look at it. And it's in a book form. I think it was the first trade paperback I ever saw. And so I remember I sold my Jimmy the Superfly Snuka and Hulk Hogan action figures for $10 a piece to Mark Avasia, I think is that. See, that name I remember. That name.
I love that you remember exactly who you sold Hulk Hogan to.
The assets.
And I literally, I think he gave me like $5 in quarters, and I walked home from school and I stopped by the shop and I said, give me this thing. And I read it that night, and the next day I took it to school, and I was going to Catholic school, and I took it to school, and the nun was like, what are you reading? I'm like, this is this comic. And she's like, why is there a nun? And we talked about it, and she's like, you need to do your book report on this. And so she let me do my book report on it. And so I did my
good Catholic hero.
Yeah. And I was like, there's drugs, and it's called Born Again. And I think a few months later, I was like, oh, there are issues. And then I went back, and that's when I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be around these things all the time. I want to do these kind of things. I want to collect them. I want to draw like them. Uccelli blew me away. Like I didn't, because I'd seen like Perez and like the Marvel guys, and McFarlane I think I was into already. But then I saw Mazzucchelli. I'm like, this guy's like telling a story. And it was the same thing where I was like, oh, he colored it too. Like he colored a couple issues, and I was like, what? This guy does everything. And then so I knew Frank Miller as a writer first, and then as an artist. And then I was like, well, who's this Frank Miller guy? And then it's just, it just snowballs. And I think it's still like that to this day, where like I'll see something that I was like, oh, this guy inked this guy. And then you do the deep dive, and now you're $100 in.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
So how did you get from I love this, I want to do it, to actually doing it? Like, how did you get it with
I decided that was what I was going to do, and I put very little effort into anything else. I mean,
that's fair.
Much what
Can't argue with that.
Okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
and
once
I just started, but I didn't know. It wasn't like now, like right. It was like 90, like 89, 90 when I really focused, and I was like, well, I'm just going to copy what they do. But I didn't know about like construction and perspective. And then so my senior year of high school, I got asked to go to this Otis Parsons, life drawing class. I was like, oh, so you got to learn how to draw people. And so then it started kind of coalescing, and I started understanding like, okay, I got to really know how to draw anatomy. And I just started going like I went to like 14 colleges. Like that's not even an exaggeration. Maybe 10.
I know that feeling.
I would just take all the art classes, and then they would recommend me to another class. And this guy teaches perspective really well. I was like, that's something I think I got to learn. And then I'd go do that. And then I would just kind of bounce around. I went to San Diego and went all over. And I think by that point, I was so invested in learning the craft and the storytelling of it that there was I never looked up. I never looked up and was like, oh, well, maybe this is not the best path. And then so when my wife and I got married, and she's like, well, you got 300 credits. Like, what's the plan? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. Like, I was doing some storyboarding. I was working retail. And then she's like, well, why don't you ever think about teaching? I was like, well, I don't know how to, I don't know. Like,
so they got me too.
And so I graduated, and then I went into teaching right away. I got lucked into a job teaching middle school, and I realized that I got better at drawing teaching it. Right. So like having to slow down and break it down and teach it to people who weren't as invested as I was made me go, okay, well, you don't have a plan. Like when you're drawing, you're just kind of like fighting with the paper, and so that really put the structure in place that I needed. Again, my wife, saved me again. And so it was one of those things where it was kind of like, okay, so then I was just doing a lot of storyboarding, and I was really into education and teaching. I was teaching animation. And then Ace Atkins, he's a writer. He took over writing Spencer, which was one of the detective novels by Robert B. Parker. And I love Spencer. And I was like, oh. So I just drew a Spencer and I put it on social media. And I think it was Twitter. And then Ace is like, this is awesome. Have you ever thought of doing comics? And I was like, that's all I think about. And at the same time,
magic words.
Kevin Gardner from 12 Gauge saw it and said, hey, this is great. Have you ever thought of doing comics? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do you have in mind? And then Ace is like, well, I have these books, these books that I wrote. Do you want to try to make them into comics? I always thought they'd be good comics. And I said, sure. And so I said, hey, Kevin, I got these books that this guy Ace Atkins wrote. And he's like, I went to college with him. We went to the same university.
Small world.
And I love those characters. And I said, well, let's make the comics. And so that's what started it. And from there, it was, I think that was about 11 years ago. And it's been pretty steady. And then I did Lizard in the Zoot Suit. And
I want to ask about Lizard in a Zoot Suit too, because you talked about being inspired by things like Peter Porker. And by the way, I used to do that same thing too. I used to buy the little packs of comics where you didn't know what was in them. So I'd have like New Mutants and there'd be Nth Man. And then suddenly, what's this Miracle Man thing sitting in the middle of this? And then what really blew my mind is when I saw Camelot 3000, because I was just like, I'm not supposed to be reading this as a kid, but I'm here.
Well, Nth Man. I got Nth Man, and then you mentioned New Mutants. When people found out, because once people find out that you read comics, you become the repository for everybody's comics that nobody wants, right?
That's exactly how it works.
There was a girl that lived in my apartments, and her cousin had lived with her for the summer and had this awesome collection. And then he went back to Korea or the Philippines or something. I don't remember exactly where. And she's like, we're moving. My mom doesn't want to take these. Do you want these? And she gave me a long box of all the New Mutants and all of X Factor, which were books that I never read. And I didn't read any mutant books or anything. And I was like, what are these guys? Who are these guys? They're like the Teen Titans, but they're a little bit edgier. And it was like that Sienkiewicz run, and
the Demon Bear and stuff,
right? And then Blevins' beautiful run. I was like,
Blevins blew me away. Well, wait, I'm getting sidetracked.
No, but Blevins was a game changer for me.
Same.
Because that was the first time. Because up until then, it kind of was like I read a lot of Teen Titans, and even the guys who would fill in for George Perez were similar in tone. They were wonderful, but it was similar in tone, right? And so to go from Sienkiewicz, who I didn't dig right away.
Yeah,
I was
I knew that feeling.
This feels weird to me. Like it's like abstract art. When I first saw abstract art, like I was like,
especially that period of his work.
Right, and now I love it. Now I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I feel like the artists like him, and also to an extent, John Romita Jr. It's like as a kid, you're like, I don't like this. It's too blocky. It's too weird. But as you get older, you're like, this is art.
Well, it's like Kirby, right? Like Jack Kirby. I remember looking at Jack Kirby and going, I don't get it. Like what? Like I don't get it. And now, again, and I think it's also like, music and movies and things that you acquire. You have to have a certain aesthetic maturity, right? That you can see beyond, I want this to look like this. And, teaching high school teaches you that too, because you'll get kids where they're like, look, I drew this cup and it looks just like the cup. And you're like, yeah, but so did 30 other people. Like, who cares? And then you'll get a kid who's like, I drew this cup, but, I chose different colors and I made it cooler to reflect light. And then you're like, okay, this kid, that kid's doing, and I'll say like that kid's doing, making jazz, because that kid's playing the chords, but then adding a little improvisation on it. And I think that's kind of where I'm at now, but I wasn't mature enough to be there at 13 or 14 or 15. And I don't know.
I was going to say, well, because I was asking about the lizard and zoot suit, and I got sidetracked with my also nostalgia. But you talked about being inspired by Peter Porker, and then I see in your bibliography that you also did some Garfield stuff.
Yeah, I did.
And then I see Lizard in a Zoot Suit, which again I need to read now. But then I look back at Calavera, and it's like an entirely different person. What's it like going back and forth? Before we do that, what is Lizard in a Zoot Suit?
Lizard in a Zoot Suit is it's my ET in the barrio. That's what I call it.
I love it.
Oh my God.
So it's basically is two pachucas, and it's based on my mom, and my mom was from El Paso, and then we kind of learned that the word Pachuco came from El Paso, right? Like that's where it comes from. And so I kind of was doing it. This was again another deep dive, and my mom's always been big on Chicano history and sharing that with me. And so I was like, well, let me do this comic of what my mom would have been like, in the 50s. And so she was kind of a troublemaker, and she likes to deny it, but so I wanted to set this story. And again, I like telling stories in areas that we typically don't see, but also not making what my friend Tanana Reeve calls trauma porn, right? Like, I didn't want it to be like, here are the riots, and this is this bad thing to happen. We know that it's a bad thing to happen. You can illustrate it. But I also never saw like ET type stories with us in them, right? Like, it was always like a really upscale neighborhood, and most of the kids had both parents, and a lot of things like that. So I wanted to do. I want
to touch on what you just said real quick. You said it was always a really upscale neighborhood. I remember watching shows like ET and stuff like that, and we'd always see like this is supposed to be the middle class or the struggling, and I'm like, but they got more stuff than we do.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And it's all relative too, right? Like apartments and that kind of stuff. And like I remember talking to a friend who was East Coast, and he was like watching Boys in the Hood when he was a kid, and he's like, well, yeah, we got gangs here too, but you guys got sunshine in gangs. So it was like, even like we can do gang bang too, but we got a gang bang in the snow. Like, so it's all relative, right? Like it's all perspective. And I think that's just the perspective that I wanted to show was like, here is all this stuff that's happening, but these two girls are having this adventure with the magical monster that they're trying to rescue. And the way that the lizard came about was there was this urban legend, which actually during the Depression, this scientist figured out, allegedly, that there was Mayan tunnels running underneath LA. And when the WPA was creating jobs, they funded a program for him to dig up some tunnels of these Mayan lizard people. And I was like, well, let's just move it forward 10 years. And it's real. And the lizards all come from the Sleepy Hollow Lagoon or Sleepy Lagoon. And so that was just kind of the thing of just trying to get this, again, timetable, right? Like this guy's got to get from here to there. And these girls have to make that happen, but they have to sneak out of the house. And there's this riot, and the Navy yardmen are all coming in to beat up anybody wearing a zoot suit. And there's all these things happening. So it was just, and again, like James Ellroy does that really well. A lot darker, but he'll choose a moment in history. And there's all this chaos happening, but there's this really dark and twisted love story or a mystery within a mystery, but the world's falling apart around it. And I like that kind of stuff. So that's where Lizard came from. And then I wanted to do something like a middle grade book. And
so art style and everything got influenced by that concept.
I don't have like a style like that. So it's even like this, everything in here is a choice. I don't I have my style is a lack of style, and which is the least marketable ability ever, right? Because I think I have,
I feel
well, I
like
think I
it
have
is
sense.
very.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
have sensibilities, but I don't have like an aesthetic style. So there's like certain sensibilities, like like storytelling sensibilities and some aesthetics that you'll see in it. But I don't have like, this is how he draws hands, like, or this is how he draws hair. And I actually envy people from that. And that came from teaching animation and doing storyboards, right? Because I would do storyboards and I have to switch. And I really thought that I was going to go more into animation. And so I had to learn to draw on different models. And one of the things we were talking about Rad earlier before we started, Rad Seacrest, is that when he would come in, he'd be like, you have to learn how to draw. And I was like, well, no, I know how to draw. He's like, no, you don't know how to draw. Like, you can draw, but you don't know how to draw. You don't have a system in place.
Yeah.
And so he taught me how to develop a system so that I could draw Baloo, I could draw Scrooge McDuck, or I could draw Calavera, right? And it's all the same system in place. It's just the way that you hang the meat on top of it. And so
or lack of meat, as the case may be.
Right, exactly. Cool. Yeah, exactly. And so it was like design sensibilities. And so it's a benefit now because now I can go, well, this is going to be a noir, so it's going to go that way. This is going to be a young adult book, so it's going to go that way. This is going to be set in the 1950s. And my influences are so deep that I can pull from those influences. So, for good or for bad, I have no style.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I want to real quick just take a complete left turn for no reason. Just point out, when you mentioned the LA, the Maya city under LA, Maya temple under LA, shortly after Born Again, in Daredevil, there was a like only shows up in like 2 or 3 comics, but there's a Maya temple under New York. And I just thought it was so like, why? Like, it's never referenced. Nobody makes a big. It's just, it just happens to be there.
Who was writing it then? Was
this was after Ann Nocenti. It was after she left.
DG Chest. DG.
It might have been
Chester.
But my point is, it was either the end of Ann Nocenti or right after her. But the thing is, it always stuck in my mind. Like, why would there be a Maya temple under New York? Why is it not a bigger deal? Like, this would be blowing archaeology all up. And I'm like, oh, hearing that about LA, I'm like, that gives me some context in that. Probably he heard the same stories, New York.
I think it's just one of those things. And I think back then too, what was neat about comics back then is that you could have like a 2-issue run where there's this temple and then never mention it again.
Yeah.
You could have, like half of New York could be decimated, and then you'd read Spider-Man and they don't mention it. And I think now, because of the Marvel movies and the DC movies, like everything has a ripple effect, which, for good or for bad, that it makes it a little bit harder to follow just one thing. Like, you're going to read Daredevil and 5 or 6 characters are going to pop in. And so I think it's good. I think it's good, but it's also really, like, I don't think the way that I got into it was like following one character and then maybe someone would be interesting outside of that and then I'd go follow. But I read the entire New Mutants run without ever reading X-Men run. And then later I was like, oh, that's who got killed and that's whose brother that is. But I just think that those self-contained stories, that's
Gregory Wright. Gregory Wright was the name. And by the way, you were asking about, and you were asking about Garcia earlier. Is it Ernesto Garcia Cabral? Is that who you're talking about? That's the artist from the 30s. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, I apologize. I'm just derailing, going off.
No, I love seeing the comic history wheels for you just go. I'm just like, yeah.
My students know it's very easy to get me off track, and I'm like, I don't mind.
Yeah, if you talk to me about comics or anything really, if I can find a thread, I will.
I like seeing people enjoy things. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
I hate it. I mean, I'm a high school teacher.
Well,
I have to.
let's just shut it down right now.
But yeah, I think that was, and I love, newspaper strips, and I love Jack Cole stuff, and so there's a lot of Jack Cole in Calavera, and there's a lot of, and I think it was going to be, I envisioned it more in that Jack Cole vein until I started.
And Jack Cole, for those listening, Plastic Man, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
But mostly his Midnight.
Oh yeah.
Midnight. So Midnight, there was a character called the Spirit, right? Everybody knows the Spirit. Well, Will Eisner was the first one to own his own character, so he owned that outright. And then Will Eisner got drafted, so he was fighting in World War II, and his publisher was like, "If this dude dies, we can't do any more of the Spirit comics." And so he said, "Jack, we need you to basically create a rip-off version of that.
There were no
in
rules
case you
back then.
guys- Yeah, and the rule, and so I love that Midnight is basically the spirit.
Yeah.
But I think he was a reporter. But everything else is pretty much like right in line. But Jack Cole, you know, if you want to do a good comics dive, Jack Cole, I think where he was going before he left the medium and then ultimately took his own life, I think we never got as close to where he was going with it. And so I think that's one of those things where, again, creating something where I can go, I want to do this stuff, you know, and make it make sense. Like, it'd be tricky to do that in a mainstream book, right? Like, because it's a different language.
Now, Elia is an artist, and she has she has a distinct style, and also Princess Taco that came out recently.
Okay. I'm gonna Google it.
But I wanted to be a writer when I was I wanted to be an artist when I was younger, and I kind of stopped drawing and just took up writing, and I really enjoy it. I wish I could just pick up a pen and go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always like in awe of people who can do that. Like Elia writes and draws her comics, and you write and draw your comics. What does it take to do both?
I mean, I can't speak for Elia, but for me, it's
I'm learning right now. I would love to learn your process.
I wish I had taken the writing part more seriously. I think in retrospect, the writing part is the part where I wish I had spent a lot more energy. I think and I think it still happens now, is that people go, well, you have to draw comics, you have to be able to draw perfectly. And I don't think you need to. I think you need to draw well enough and clear enough.
You did draw your stuff.
Yeah, but I also think it's also, you know, a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. You know, you can cheat, you can do certain things. I try not to, but I think that you can. I think with storytelling, like, I thought because I wanted to draw comics, I really wanted to learn how to draw. What I really wanted to do was tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I should have focused on the stories, because if you give me a piece of paper, I'm probably, and say draw something, I'm not going to really enjoy it. But if you say draw a story of a guy checking the mail, that I can enjoy. I can get down on that, right? But I can't, like splash pages are like my nemesis. And because I'm like, I would rather do 11 panels on a page than do a splash page, because I feel like it's just an image. And so in context, I always try to make sure the splash page has some storytelling elements. Mm-hmm. But I would prefer, like, I have to tell myself it's just a really big panel. Like, it doesn't have to do a lot. Same thing with covers. Like, I think covers, I love covers that have text and stuff happening on them, you know? And so I think the storytelling part was the part I wish I had leaned into. We didn't have the courses that we have now, but I did have some good teachers, and I had like visual thinking and visual storytelling classes that made me go, this is the stuff that I really want to learn. And so, again, I was a little bit older by the time I realized it, but I really wish that craft part, because I read more than I draw, and I make up stories more than I draw. Like, I won't sit down with a sketchbook and just draw. Like, it has to be, like, if it's a character design, I have to know something about the character. I have to know what they're doing, what kind of attitude they have, their personality, because I can't just create anything, you know, like, just draw it. It doesn't make sense to me to just draw. I don't enjoy drawing. I enjoy drawing a story, but the drawing just drawing is just like, yeah, you know, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, it's, and I think too much of what we do, especially with kids, is we say, well, you're naturally born with this drawing ability, right? And so then you diminish the work that goes into it. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times art is taken for granted because they just assume that you can do this naturally and that you love it, right? So
yeah,
I bet you've been asked several times for a logo or a portrait, or can you draw this, or can you do this? And then you go, oh, no, I don't want to. And you go, well, why? You're drawing anyway. Yeah, but I'm drawing either for money or for me. Like, I'm not drawing for you. Like, it's not. Mm-hmm. But nobody would ever go to you, Kevin, and say, write me a novel.
Well, I've had that, actually.
No.
but like, not while I watch you. I'm gonna sit here, just write something real quick, right? Because writing is equated to work. because so many kids have to write for school and you have to write for work, and drawing is
so
equated
true.
to play.
That's, you know what?
right?
That's I cannot argue with that at all. That's exactly the way people look at it when they come in.
And look at school. When you're a kid in school and you finished your work, flip it over and draw something. You know, it was the reward, and so it was never the work. And so that's the blue collar part where, you know, my kids are all creative kids, and, you know, they dance and they write and they sing and they act and they do all this stuff, but they know that it's work. Like they work really hard at it. They really practice it, and they do other things for relaxing time. Like, you know what I mean? And so for me, that's what drawing is. It's a lot of work. Like, it's not like, it's grueling sometimes and it's frustrating and I love it, but it's not something I would choose to do in my leisure. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather be passive. And I think people just think that it comes naturally.
Yes.
I think there's an affinity to it. Like, you have an affinity of being a visual storyteller, but I don't think the act of drawing is respected as much as the act of writing. Anybody who's worked in comics says, "Oh, do you do real books too?"
Real books.
Yeah, or book books. That's the other.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, books, not
Right.
comic
Or if you're
books.
like an art teacher. Oh, I thought you were a real teacher.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oy.
You know, and it's not. And again, it's not anyone's fault, but it's just systemic, right? Like, it's always been that way. Like, it's like, I remember racing through work so that I could draw, but my drawings were, you know, a tank being stepped on by the Incredible Hulk. You know, it wasn't like a tree.
Yeah.
Now, a tree stepping on a tank, that'd be cool.
Right, that would be.
Do your students know that you make these comics?
Some we kind of keep it like alter egos, you know, but
Yeah,
they will find out. They can Google, and so yeah. So I think it's, again, I think for the students it's important, for the ones especially that want to do this, because it's nice for them to see that you can make a living at it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always a trip, because they go, "Oh, you draw comics?" And I go, "Yeah." And then they go, "What comics do you do?" And then I'll hand them something, you know, like James Bond or Calavera, and they're like, "Oh, wait, you did this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And like, well, who's Oni? I'm like, "Well, that's the publisher." "Well, what did they do?" "Well, they paid me to do it." You got paid to do it? And even adults, like, you know, I'll still meet adults and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" "Well, I teach art and then I draw comics." "Oh, so like, you know, oh, well, I'm in a band." "Oh, that's cool." And it's like, well, it's not a hobby, it's like a job. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then you give them a book and they're like, "Oh, wait, you like actually draw like for money." Yeah. Yeah. And that's because it's such a luxury to be able to do that, right? Like, it's such a gift, but it's also so foreign to most people, because most people who are my age at this point have shed that, right? It's the used to, "Oh, I used to draw," or "I used to want to be a writer," or "I used to play bass," or "I used to," and we've never let the used to go. Like, I still, and I think that's one of the things that why I have a career, is because I never let it go. Like, I never was like, "Well, that dream's dead. You know, I'm gonna just do this thing." It was always in the back of my mind, either storyboarding or comics. So it was never like, I'm not going to do it. And then when it became a career, and a pretty sustainable career, it was like, oh, now I get to do it, but I also have to do it, you know. And my other son, Dylan, who's 19, he's used to, like, he was little, and I would be storyboarding, and he'd come down the stairs at, 1 a.m. and bopping down the stairs, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm drawing." He's like, "Oh, I'm drawing too." And then he'd fall asleep drawing. And so even now, like, if I'm drawing, like, he'll come in, and I'm like, frustrated. They like when I get frustrated at my drawings, and I'm like drawing, and I make a little sound. They know the sound. I go like my little lip smack, or I'll go like, "Come on, Marco, like, that's not a hand." And Dylan will call me out, and he's like, "Oh, did your dream come true? And now it's hard."
Wow.
And I was like, all right.
He knows right where to put that knife.
Yeah, but they're like I said, they're all actors and writers, and so they'll get it. Now he's starting to get it now, because he'll be at a rehearsal. "Oh, I had rehearsal for 6 hours. Oh, your dream come true?" Yeah, sorry.
Hilarious.
Yeah, or he was sore from like stage combat.
Ooh.
And he's like, "It's so dumb, but like, I really hurt my arm, like, stage combat." And I just laugh. I'm like, but it's, or he'll send us pictures of like makeup from like a film shoot, and like he was doing a short film, he had like a huge busted eye, and he's like, there was an accident on the set, and the crane hit
I
me.
love that.
And my wife had her shoes on and was almost out the door. He's like, I'm just kidding, it's makeup. And I was like,
she's like, I'm gonna give somebody a piece of my mind.
She was like, I don't.
She was ready.
Her shoes were on, keys were in her hand, and before I could even process what was happening. And so, they understand that it's a lot of work, but it's also, you can't take it seriously. Like at the end of the day, like, you're talking, does a skeleton bleed, and what color should the blood be? And just things like that, which it's awesome. I mean, there's no other job than making up stories where you can have conversations like that, and it's a legit part of your job. Like, my wife is a principal, and she works all through summer, and she's and in summer I go into like full-time comics mode, and she's like, oh, I'm like, what are you doing? She's got like 5 monitors and spreadsheets, and doing all these things that will affect kids' lives well into the future. And she's like, what'd you do today? I was like, well, I did this really cool punch scene, and it really felt like, but do you think it's too many teeth that are coming out, or should
or not enough?
Yeah, I'm like, or should it be more teeth, or what sound effect would it, and it's like, we're basically doing the same thing. We're basically helping the same amount of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand how lucky it is, and I can be grumpy about it, but I understand how charmed this life is.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
I forgot what the thread of the question was. You guys get me on tangents.
I have that effect. I have that effect on people.
Yeah.
I have that effect on people. Honestly, it's really fun having somebody here who has a passion for it, but also has I'm still blown away by this whole I don't really have a style thing, because it's like a lot of people have varied talents, but these are extremely different styles that work really internally consistent, and that is a skill.
Yeah, I myself, I'm just like envious of that. That's a really cool way to just have that creative flexibility to be able to tell the stories you want to.
And I think it also, thank you, but I also think it's one of those things too where you can tell more stories, right? Like you can, like, it's a completely selfish problem I've created for myself, because if I love Archie comics, right? Like I just think they're the coolest, and I love Disney comics, and I love all that stuff. And at some point I want to play in all those worlds, but if I only drew like this, then it limits me. And I think I've kind of put myself in a little bit of a box, being like the noir guy. Like, I get a lot of noir offers, and that's great. I'm happy to have any work, but it's also, when I write something, I tend to write myself into a situation that requires more work. Right? Because no one's going to write me a funny animal book. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, I can ask, but I wouldn't write me one based off of what I have, right? No one's going to write me, like, I'm doing a young adult book that hasn't been announced that I'll be doing next year. And then that's a very specific thing, but I would love to do like a middle grade book, like a Raina Telemagic type book, or an adventure book. And I've learned that if I want to do those things, I have to create a pitch that's almost bulletproof, right? Like, because there's no proof that I can pull it off. So I have to invent the proof and say, look, this is what it's going to look like. This is how I'm going to color it. This is how the letters are going to be. And if someone passes, and people have passed on things before, and if they pass on it, then they pass on it. But at least I put it out there and said, this is how I wanted it to look. And I could easily say, I'm going to do it just like everything else I've always done. And so I think it makes it more interesting. And those, for me, that's way more fun. Mm-hmm. Like, I can draw, like with this Dynamite stuff, like that style is very much my safe, realistic style. And same thing with, I think Calavera has now become that. And it's not easy, but it's grounded in reality, right? So I don't have to, the rules are already in place for me. But if I'm doing something that's like an Archie book, or something that's more animated, then I can play with like squashing and stretching and and exaggerating, and that's the stuff that I love. Like, but again, no one's gonna write that for me. Like, I have to, if I want to do that, it's got to be really specific, like Lizard in a Zoot Suit, where I can say, no, this style has to exist for this book. And I think, in retrospect, I think I pitched Lizard in a Zoot Suit with the more realistic style, and then I switched it on him, and I remember my editor being like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, this is how I want to draw it." And he's like, "You can't do that. Like, you can't just switch, man. Like, go back to the other thing." I was like, "No, but I want to do it." And so I had to like prove to them that I could do that bouncier style because, and if I can find it, I'll find the original pitch pages, and they're very much like Calavera grounded style, and they're like, "You no, we don't know that you can do this, and you can't." And I was like, "Oh," my agent was like, "What are you doing? You can't change on them." Um, so those are those things where like you have to prove, and it's fun to me. I think it's fun to figure out form and structure and and how far you can push things.
I feel like I've just been sitting here like soaking up just knowledge and advice because like
Like
I'm
in
I'm very
awe.
much on the path. Yeah, because I'm very much on the path. Like I want to write and illustrate comics too. I'm just very much stuck in like certain boxes. But hearing you talk about your creative process, I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. I need to go try something new now. So no, low key. Thank you
But
for
no.
just
And
talking
one
about
thing
your
that helps,
process. Yeah,
my
yeah,
favorite
go for
thing,
it.
the thing that helps me is every morning before I start drawing, before I start teaching, is I will find something, and I don't have my sketchbook handy, but I will find a style that is very beyond me, and I will study it. So like last week was all Ben 10. Like I just
Oh
would find
yeah.
Ben 10 model sheets and then Ben 10 screenshots, and I would just draw them. And it's very different from this week was what's that show? It's Big Hero 6, but the series.
Mhm.
Like and those designs are fantastic. They're beautiful
Yeah.
designs, and it's straights versus curves and angles and this stuff. And I just go, well, what if I had draw this? And so I get very comfortable with the style, and then I'll try to draw something original in that style.
Ooh,
Right? So
okay.
it's like remixing the style. So it's like instead of doing like karaoke is like I'm gonna sing this song just like Mariah Carey, right?
Hmm.
But remixing is I'm gonna take this drum line from here, and then I'm gonna take these horns from here, and then I'm gonna make a beat that says this, right? And so that's what I like to do is taking
Okay.
things and like synthesizing things that, and again, no one ever sees these. The only person that sees
Yeah.
it is my friend Eric Gapsper, who he's working at Marvel on Rivals, and he did like poor guy. I text him hey, you ever notice how cool Ben 10's shoulders are? He's like, one of them,
The
like,
kind of thing artists discuss. I
yeah,
love it.
Talking
yeah,
about lunch.
yeah. But that's what Rad used to do. Rad, that was my favorite thing about having Rad in there.
Rad
Rad
being the guy that had created
Rad's,
Kipo.
yeah, and he would come in and he'd be like, "You ever watch how Mike Waringo, draws torsos?"
Oh yeah.
And then we'd sit there and we'd talk about his torsos, and hey, have you ever thought about how the hand is like a pack of cigarettes, and if you make it three-dimensional, or like a mitten, or and you would just do like that. I love that kind of stuff, and it makes my brain feel better. It's not productive in
Is
the
it
sense
though?
of it's productive because it
Yes.
primes you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it builds
But
absolutely.
it
those.
doesn't. But it doesn't. It has to be selfish. Like it's not. It's not like stretching. It's like play. Like you're like, oh, this is no pressure, but it's the
Yeah.
puzzle of, can I figure out how to reverse engineer Mickey Mouse? Like if you ever try to draw Mickey Mouse without structure, like that model is
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
he looks,
Yeah.
yeah, like he's
Yeah.
tall and he's small, and then his ears don't make sense,
Yeah.
and then when he he's basically just like that the flour sack body, and it
Hmm.
twists weird, and I'll go nuts trying to figure it out, or try to figure out, like, if someone's doing an arm like this, like, oh, how can I do that with as few lines as possible, or
Yeah.
as just one shape? And so those are the things where that stuff gets my brain going, and that's kind of where it jars something. And I think, as much as I think from a marketing point of view I don't have a style, I think for me that makes me happier. you know
It's neat. I think it's a
yeah.
really neat skill.
Thank you. And you can
Yeah.
do it for stories, you can do it for novels, you can do it for writing. Like I'll break down screenplays, like I'll
Yes.
break down acts, I'll be like, okay, so the act 1 break is here and the act 2 break is here, and then, oh, this is that. Like I will it's just like it's the same brain that like made me go collect all the Daredevil comics, right? Like it's like I have to know. I remember there's an artist named Michael Lark, and when I was in college, I reached out to him a lot, and finally I think the straw that broke the back was he's like, just draw it. Like, stop asking, because I would ask like, well, what do you do this? And what about this? He's like, just draw it. But I also really like Alex Toth. And I would correspond with him a lot, you know.
And again, for our audience, Space Ghost,
Yeah.
Space Ghost, rather, and the earlier '60s designs of a lot of Hanna-Barbera's adventure heroes.
Hanna-Barbera, yeah. And he was like an artist, and he was the same kind of guy. Where
everybody describes him as an artist. I always hear Alex Toth described that way.
He's like that. Kevin Nolan's like that. You know, and these are, I think that's one of those terms that, you know, it's one of those things where I think they do things that we look at and we go, oh man, like that knee bend, like come on, you know, you know, or something that is so inside baseball that no one else cares about. That the average person's like, it's a knee, like who cares, you know? And I think that's the stuff that I like. That's the stuff where I'm like, oh, can you know? And that's when someone gets a text somewhere, you know, Eric, look at this knee, or you know, and he'll do the same thing. Like
I'm just imagining you guys just going back and forth on like Ditko hands and stuff, you know.
You should see the text chain between him and I. It's just, and it's daily. It's every single day. It's like, this is what I draw. Tell me I don't suck. Okay, you don't suck. Now tell me I don't suck. Okay, now let's talk about Stuart Eminem for, you know, 16 texts. Or let's talk about Humberto Ramos, but not like Humberto Ramos. Like, let's talk about Humberto Ramos during Impulse's run, you know, on this issue. Like, you know, it just.
I love that though.
Yeah,
I want chats like that with artists. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just again, it's very specific stuff that if you're not trying to do it, you're not going to really, you know, get it. And it's I imagine every business has it, right? Like, I think, like, you know, there's guys who make sandwiches for a living, and they're like, oh no, like if you toast the bread, but you only toast the bottom part, and then you put the cheese on. Oh, okay. You know, I've heard people talk about stuff, you know, food like that, or cars like that, or, you know, I think it's just, you get this thing and you find people of like minds, and they want to talk to you about it, and they want to get in the weeds with you. And I think that's important. You know, I think that's one of the things that is neat to have students that you have that are like that, because then you can really be like, look at this, look at how, you know, Bruce Timm, you know, shows that this arm is solid by turning this little corner here on the shoulder. Like, there's no rendering. Just look at that. Like, I called a student in the other day. I was like, look at how this hair falls on the shoulder, and then that shoulder makes that plane of the shoulder right there. And she's like, cool. Can I go work now? I was like, I just really thought I had to share this with somebody. And she's you know, and so you'll get kids who are like,
I definitely do.
Oh man, yeah, you know,
get it,
so and that's where you're like, okay, you're getting all the attention. Yeah. So I mean, it's you get in the weeds, but it's good stuff.
Well, speaking of getting in the weeds, people can find Calavera PI right now. It's a trade already from Oni at bookstores and discerning comic book stores everywhere, of course. Anything down the line you want people to keep an eye out for?
We're doing the Dynamite book, so that's out. Issue 1 is out. It's called Die! Dynamite, and then I think Kills is the second part, and it's just silly.
That's what Dynamite does.
It's awesome. I mean, it's just a lot of killing stuff, and it's a lot of you know, Vampirilla as a detective, Red Sonja chopping people's heads off.
As she do.
It's just I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy drawing Miss Fury, who I didn't really know a lot about.
A 1940s character.
Man, I am digging drawing her. She's
that
like
Tarpe
a violent
Mills?
Catwoman. Yeah, I think she was. Yeah, and she's. Yeah. I don't know much about her, but
it was created by one of the first great female creators in comics.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
And I think that was that time frame. You know, it's just nice to play in that. Like, I would never have sought it out, but now that it's here, I'm like, oh, what else can I have her shoot? You know, and she's got a great silhouette. You know, like, you can make a nice. Like, I'm a sucker for a silhouette from Alex Toth. You know, like, so it's from a design point of view, you're like, oh, I can how little. I mean, I don't know if people are gonna like it. People probably hate it because I'm not rendering and making them, super sultry like they've been known to, which is not the best way to sell the book. But it's like, I'm like, no, but look, what if I cover them up completely almost all the time? That'll sell a lot of books.
Of course. I mean, that's what people want. They want the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I think I love design. I think we look for any area to try to push those muscles, right? Like, I think it's the guitar solo of drawing is like, it's this, not even the guitar solo, because the guitar solo is so flashy. It's just like this subtle bass line that if you don't listen for it, you don't notice it. And I think that's what design is. Like, Mignola's great at that. Like, for as good as everything he does, writing, drawing, everything, his design sense is ridiculous, and I think it's one of those things where if you see it, you can't unsee it. And it just makes every page, like, you spend hours staring at a Mignola page. You're like, how did you do that? And then you talk to him or you hear him talk and he's like, it took a lot of work, like it really stressed me out. And then you can see that appreciation for it. So yeah, I get nerdy about things. Sorry, guys.
No,
that's okay.
Love it. I'm like learning. So no, don't apologize.
Right.
Absolutely not. Oh, well, I hate that we have to bring this to an end because this is such fun and enriching
Yes.
and that talking.
Yes.
No. Thank you so much for joining us
problem.
tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to see your future works. I'm so excited to delve
Thank
into
you.
more. Can't wait to see what's next. And I think it's just really cool that you are also educating the creative minds of tomorrow. That's we got to take a moment to appreciate just
Thank you.
education.
As you are.
Hell
Kevin.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, while it's still around, let's enjoy it.
Oy
Yeah,
vey.
until they take it away.
Sorry, I had to make it dark for a second.
No, but it's so real.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you all so much
you.
for tuning in. Marco, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
Y'all make sure to go follow him on all social media. What is the primary place that people can find you online?
I think lately I've been on Instagram and it's Marco. What is it?
I just followed you right now.
So good.
Did you? Okay, it's Marco Finnegan, Marco.Finnegan. And then I'm on Twitter, or whatever it was, at Marco949, and I'm at Blue Sky at Marco Finnegan. So
Well, I need to follow you there too. I don't use Blue Sky
Yeah,
as much as I need to, but
Same.
I really
don't-
want to
yeah.
get back on that.
I get sucked in, and because again, there's so much good stuff and good
Mhm.
art on these
Yeah.
things, and that you can get really sucked in, and you can really not. It's a really good way to procrastinate.
Yeah.
It's the best way to procrastinate. I mean,
Absolutely.
really, you can get, and you feel like you're. What's networking? I'm networking.
Yeah, or finding
I'm not
inspiration.
networking. Yeah.
No, yeah.
I'm watching dog videos. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to, though.
Dog
Yeah.
videos are
Sometimes
for
you
the
need to.
soul.
Yeah.
There's that one guy, and it's the funniest thing, and he does the voices of the dogs as they're doing things.
That's awesome.
Man, I don't know what. That's my level of comedy right there. That's
You know, I do that with cat
genre of
videos.
comedy that is,
Yeah.
is somebody doing dog voices as dogs are running around. That's all I need. And the penguins
Just
in
narrating
Madagascar. Like
Of
that's
course.
it's my
Oh, yeah.
my bar is way down there.
No, but that's the thing. It's not a low bar. That is great. Good comedy. Just
It's
good
good
for the
stuff?
soul.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you all, Primos.
Thanks,
We
guys.
will see you all next time. Make
Please
sure to follow us
make sure you
everywhere.
follow us as well, please.
I will.
Also, if you haven't already,
Oh.
GGTs, my Primos. Kevin,
Oh.
you're not wearing
Well, I
it.
was wearing it last episode, so I had it.
That's
but
true. I got the charge this time. Check out GGT's, our amazing Primo Aaron, making some amazing designs. Use code
Oh.
MyPrimos. Shop it out, y'all Primos. Y'all
Cool.
have a good one. Have a good week. Have a good month. Have a good everything. And we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks.
Mwah!
termina resalta mi amor.